Liverpool have dropped points, right, to Newcastle, to Fulham, and the one team that has capitalized is Chelsea and not Arsenal. And we thought all along as the season began that the guys who were going to challenge for the title would be Liverpool, Arsenal, and Man City. And Chelsea, maybe with the talent, would be there and thereabout, but wouldn't think they'd be second, having gone past Arsenal. What do you think has gone wrong with Arsenal? Because Arsenal at this point, I mean, at some point they scored five, right? They looked good against West Ham and looked good in the Champions League. But at this point in time, when you look at some of their games, they're set piece dependent. And without that, not much creativity is coming away. If not that, let's at least give them credit and say they use Saka, who's one of their outlets, but they can't rely on Martinelli on the other side or Trossard on the other side when he does play. What do you think has gone wrong, though? This is what Arsenal are at this point in time when they're supposed to be chasing.
Risk aversion, Chuck. That is the name of the game with Mikel Arteta's Arsenal. So, if I go back to Ruben Amorim for a moment, right, and this is what we saw with Thomas Tuchel at Chelsea, even though he did win the Champions League, there is a point where you can't just play to not lose. There's a point where we need to take the training wheels off and we need to go. The players need to have a sense that they can express themselves. It's actually the counter of how Jurgen Klopp built Liverpool. Because when Jurgen Klopp came into Liverpool, he gave them the freedom to play, but they were conceding a lot of goals, and that's why they weren't challenging for any titles really. But they were playing attractive football. But he was building that within his attackers, and then what he then did is, this is Jurgen Klopp at Liverpool. Got Alisson, got Van Dijk, and he got Fabinho, and he strengthened then the spine. And defensively they were sound, but they already had the attack. That's why they could go on and dominate games. Arteta and Ruben Amorim, to an extent, are coming at it from the other side, but there is a threshold where you have to get away from the risk aversion, where you have to take those risks, where you have to take those chances. Chuck, when you watch Arsenal and when you think about the additions at Arsenal this season, Mikel Arteta keeps buying defenders.
Yeah.
I mean, even the striker that you bought, he's a defensive striker. He's like Kai Havertz, who is the starting number 9, right? He's not all out attack. He's not a someone who is thirsty for goals. And then you have Gabriel Jesus, who came out and told us that that's not his main job. Like, scoring goals is not his main job. And then you watch Arsenal, and outside of Bukayo Saka as well as Martin Odegaard, there's not much. You've got a Declan Rice who's playing as your 6, and because in the game against Everton, where that game was a 0-0 draw, you have Declan Rice in there, and you have Mikel Merino. We haven't seen much from Mikel Merino since his join, and where Declan Rice is concerned, Declan Rice can't even receive a ball facing his goal and turn. And you don't have Thomas Partey in there, and I know there might be some other issues with Thomas Partey off the field, and maybe that's why he's not playing. But if we're just strictly talking from a football sense, he's probably been the second best player, if not the best player for Arsenal this season, and Arsenal cannot play without him. And when you look at the makeup of the team, one, they do not have anyone who is a natural goal scorer. Saka scores goals, right? But he's not an out-and-out goal scorer, and you need that guy. You don't have that in Havertz. You don't have that in Jesus. You don't have that in Martinelli. Odegaard gave you 15 goals a few seasons ago, and I said at the time that that's when Arsenal needed to win the league, because all of these players seem to hit some peaks in terms of goal output that they're going to give in their careers. I don't quite see Odegaard scoring 15 goals a season like Frank Lampard on a regular basis. And so if Odegaard is not scoring and he's just the chief creator, and Bukayo Saka is supposed to be the chief goal scorer, but he doesn't give you the same kind of output as maybe Mo Salah does, then you're looking around and asking the question, who's going to be scoring goals? And then if it's not facilitated by the players themselves, Chuck, the approach is very defensive. It's as I'm saying, it's very risk. It's risk aversion. Focused, and Mikel Arteta said as much, that we don't want to take risks. And unfortunately, you're going to have situations where you have 0-0s against Everton, or if you're winning the game, you are relying on scoring headers from set pieces.
I mean, if I think about a couple of seasons back, Jay, where I said to you that, you know what, if we beat Crystal Palace and then we go and do the business against Arsenal at the Emirates, then we're back in the title run. And obviously, all of that didn't happen. We lost all those 6 points. the point is this, Jay, that we went to the Emirates and we were blown away, not necessarily the scoreline, but Arsenal were that much better. You're like, okay, these are the guys who were the contenders and these are the guys who were the pretenders. And obviously we got the choke job, maybe the run in with Arsenal and then with Arsenal and City and Liverpool falling away at the end last season. And then to this. That's why it's disappointing for me in terms of you guys had the goals. Fine, it was coming from all over the place and you wanted a recognized goal scorer to keep or to carry the burden of the goals. Fine, you wanted maybe more attacking reinforcements, but you guys were at the peak in terms of what it takes to run Man City close. And then to this, so that for me is quite surprising. When you look at the game against Arsenal, against United that you speak about, it was a cagey affair. You're like, you guys are playing at home. You guys have got something to win because our season is already in tatters. That is Man United, but Arsenal have got a league on the line in terms of chasing for it, and they had the first half that they did. If you take away those two corners, what did they actually bring to the party? And that for me is worrying. That for me is concerning in terms of. So when did you decide to take a step backwards? When did you decide in terms of I shouldn't be scoring more goals? Because that's the name of the game at this point in time. Because for as bad as Liverpool are, as open as they are, they've got a Mo Salah to score them goals. As much as they've got Cody Gakpo who will miss or Darwin Núñez who will miss, they've got a Mo Salah who is a killer. They've got players like Gravenberg who've ascended in terms of their responsibility and they're cleaning up everything in front of them. And then they've got the Van Dijk, like you said, and they've got Alisson back now as well in goals. So they must then be able to show up at the back. So for me, I thought to myself, well, you've got Timber. Yes, he was injured. You've got Calafiori now, but where are you? As you've bemoaned, Jay.
You see the players that you're counting? Defenders,
yeah.
Chuck.
And as you have bemoaning all the time that God knows what we'll do if Saka were to go down with injury. And that's the question that he's never answered, I think, in the 3 years at the helm in terms of what is your backup to Saka? Yes, you've got a backup for Martinelli who is trusted, but what is your backup to Saka? You've got Nwaneri, Abo Skelly, I forget his name, but you've got all these other guys who are not quite that.
Lewis Kelly,
who are not quite that. And you're like, these guys are not ready to step up and fill in the boots of Saka or even Havertz, because Gabriel Jesus is not even a better deputy than it's not a good enough deputy for Havertz, because Havertz is not scoring enough. Gabriel is not scoring at all. You saw his exploits in the Champions League 1-1 twice. He can't find the back of the net. If you can't find the back of the net via your strikers, who are your game breakers? Who are your game winners? So it's surprising that Arsenal are where they are, because when I look at Arsenal's team, maybe you'll have question marks over Martinelli in terms of pure talent, but all of them have got footballing brains. All of them have got good footballing ability. And when you put the handbrake on that ability in terms of let's be safe, I think you're doing yourself a disservice. So for
me, footballing ability, Chuck, but it's not geared towards attacking football.
And, they play with the handbrake,
and mainly that's because the coach is asking them to play like that, right? He just needs to open up the playbook, because you're not going to sign a whole host of players now in January, and there's an opportunity in the season, as you mentioned. Yes, and we've spoken about this ad nauseum now, that yes, Liverpool have the lead and they built the lead that they did, but they're not Teflon. You feel like, and you've seen that they can be gotten, and there's still so much of the season to go, but you don't imagine you're going to solve the attacking problems in the transfer market right now in January. So the onus comes back on the coach in terms of how he sets up, and he needs to put those players in a better position to be able to be more attacking and to be dominant in that way on the score sheet, rather than just you have the ball and you're hard to score against. It cannot just be that. That's why I said at the beginning phase that's what you want, but at the point where now you are at a stage where you are challenging for things, you need to go out and win these games. And it cannot be that in every single game what you're relying on, as great a strength as it is, right? Because Arsenal could have scored 4 times with the corners against Manchester United, but it can't be that your whole game plan is that we're going to get a few set pieces and we're going to convert from some of them. You have players. You are the coach. You need as Mikel Arteta to make that work, whether it's inspiring those players to greater heights, or as I'm saying, it is scheming a game plan whereby there is more freedom and there is more space for them to exploit in the final third and to be able to score those goals. Mikel Arteta needs to figure it out, Chuck.
No, he has to, man, because I think I heard Thierry Henry say that to win the Premier League, you have to want to win it. You can't defend points you don't have. You can't play not to lose. You have to win the actual league. So I think he needs to change his mentality, because
you have to attack the league.
Yeah, not every team is West Ham where it's going to be as open, very open, and you're going to have your way. Other teams are going to show up. Other teams are going to have a low block. Other teams are going to be structured, and then you have to show that you are a stronger team. You're a more disciplined team. You know what you want to do. In fact, whenever I've watched Arsenal for the past 2 seasons, I thought to myself, these guys know what to do all the time. Whenever they've got the ball in position, they know how to recycle the ball. They know which avenues to hurt the team in, and that's how they play. And that's why you see Saka pop up. So you see Martinelli pop up and Odegaard and all these guys, because they all know their job. At present, it doesn't quite look like that.